All right, folks, let's take a trip down memory lane. Picture this. It's the 1950s, and the world is divided like a high school cafeteria. On one side, you've got the USA and its buddies waving the flag of capitalism. On the other, the Soviet Union and its pals. All about that communism life. It's like two cliques fighting over who has the coolest ideology. This wasn't just about economic systems, though. It was a full-on battle of ideas. America was all about democracy, individual freedom, and free markets. The Soviets, they were pushing for state control, collective ownership, and a classless society. It's like they were speaking different languages, but instead of words, they used missiles and spies. Even after the Soviet Union went bust in 1991, these ideological differences didn't just disappear, they evolved. Russia might have ditched communism, but it's still not exactly BFFs with democracy. China's got its own special blend of communism and capitalism that the US finds hard to swallow. And North Korea? Well, they're in a league of their own with their Juche ideology of self-reliance. These historical tensions are like that embarrassing childhood photo your mum keeps bringing up at family gatherings. They just won't go away. They shape how these countries see each other, how they act on the world stage, and why they can't seem to get along. It's like they're all still fighting the Cold War, just with different weapons and on different battlefields.
Now, let's talk about the global game of risk that these countries are playing. It's not just about who has the biggest army anymore. It's about influence, alliances, and who can plant their flag in the most strategic spots. The US has been the big kid on the playground for a while, and Russia, China, and North Korea aren't too happy about it. Take Russia, for example. They've been flexing their muscles in places like Ukraine and Syria. It's like they're trying to recreate their Soviet-era sphere of influence. The US responds by slapping on sanctions and beefing up NATO. It's a geopolitical dance where nobody wants to step on each other's toes, but everyone's wearing steel-toed boots. China's playing the long game. They're building islands in the South China Sea like it's a giant game of Minecraft. They're also throwing money around with their Belt and Road Initiative, trying to buy friends and influence. The US is watching all this like a hawk, worried that China might knock them off their perch as the world's top dog. And then there's North Korea, the wild card in this whole mess. They're like that kid who keeps threatening to flip the game board if they don't get their way. Their nuclear program has everyone on edge. The US wants them to give it up, but North Korea sees it as their only bargaining chip. It's a high-stakes game of chicken that nobody wants to lose.
Okay, let's switch gears and talk about something that really gets under America's skin: human rights. The US likes to think of itself as the world's moral compass, always pointing towards freedom and democracy. But when it looks at Russia, China, and North Korea, that compass starts spinning like it's caught in a magnetic storm. In Russia, you've got issues with press freedom, LGBTQ+ rights, and political opposition. It's like they're playing a game of how to be a democracy, but they've torn out half the pages from the rulebook. The US keeps calling foul, but Russia just shrugs it off, saying, different culture, different rules. China's human rights record is another thorny issue. The treatment of Uyghurs in Xinjiang, the crackdown on Hong Kong's democracy movement, and the general lack of political freedom are all major sticking points. It's like China's playing a different game altogether, one where stability trumps individual rights. And then there's North Korea, which is in a league of its own when it comes to human rights issues. Political prison camps, no freedom of speech, no internet. It's like they're stuck in a dystopian novel. The US keeps trying to shine a light on these issues, but North Korea just pulls the curtains tighter.
Section 4. Economic rivalry, trade wars, and market dominance. Now let's talk money, honey, because at the end of the day, a lot of this tension boils down to cold, hard cash. The US has been the world's biggest economy for a long time, but China's been gaining on them faster than a cheetah chasing a gazelle. This economic rivalry is turning into a full-on trade war. Remember when Trump started slapping tariffs on Chinese goods like he was handing out parking tickets? China hit back, and suddenly we're all paying more for, well, everything. It's like two kids fighting over who gets to be the richest in Monopoly, except this game affects real people's lives. Russia's economy might not be as big, but they've got something everyone wants: energy. They're like the kid who controls the only power outlet in the classroom. Europe depends on Russian gas, which gives Russia a lot of leverage. The US doesn't like this one bit and has been pushing Europe to find other energy sources. North Korea is a different story. Their economy is more isolated than a hermit in a cave, but they found creative ways to make money, like cyber heists and cryptocurrency scams. It's like they're the world's most persistent Nigerian prince email scammer, and it's driving the US nuts trying to stop them. Section 5. Cyber warfare, the new frontier of conflict. All right, let's dive into the digital world, where the battles are fought with keyboards instead of guns. Cyber warfare is the new cool kid on the block, and everyone's trying to get in on the action. It's like a high-tech game of spy versus spy, except the consequences are way more serious than a pie in the face. Russia's been accused of meddling in elections faster than you can say fake news. They're like that friend who can't help but stir up drama in the group chat. The US has been scrambling to protect its digital infrastructure, but it's like trying to plug holes in a leaky boat while sailing through a storm. China's approach is more about the long game. They're accused of stealing intellectual property like it's going out of style. It's as if they've found a way to copy homework without even being in the same classroom. The US is trying to guard its tech secrets, but China's pretty good at finding the cracks in the digital armor. North Korea might be behind technologically, but they're no slouch in the cyber world. They've been linked to some pretty big heists and ransomware attacks. It's like they've taken their whole Juche self-reliance thing and applied it to cybercrime. The US is constantly playing whack-a-mole with North Korean hackers.
Section 6. Complex relationships, navigating a changing world. So here we are trying to make sense of this geopolitical soap opera. It's easy to paint these relationships in black and white, good guys versus bad guys. But reality is more like a Jackson Pollock painting, messy, complex, and open to interpretation. The thing is, these relationships aren't static. They're constantly evolving, like a really complicated dance where everyone keeps changing partners. One day, the US and China might be cooperating on climate change. The next, they're at each other's throats over Taiwan. It's enough to give you geopolitical whiplash. And let's not forget, these countries need each other, whether they like it or not. The global economy is more interconnected than a family tree in a small town. Cutting ties completely would be like trying to unscramble an omelette, messy and probably impossible. So, what's the takeaway from all this? Well, international relations are complicated, folks. It's not about good versus evil, but about competing interests, historical baggage, and a whole lot of ego. As we move forward, the challenge will be finding ways to cooperate on global issues while managing these tensions. It's like trying to plan a family reunion when half the family isn't speaking to each other. Difficult? Yes. Impossible? Let's hope not.